Warm greetings and also Independence Day greetings to all those who are from India and also from India but living abroad. On behalf of Friday Waters, an initiative of the W4W Foundation, a think tank built as Citizens Collective, we welcome you to today's session of Meet a Maestro. Friday Waters is a continuation of the signature series Wednesdays for Water. Each of these sessions takes place once a month in Friday Waters, which is Friday Water Reading Club, Friday Water Thesis Club, Water Arts, Water Talkies, and sometimes in few months we get a Meet a Maestro. The Friday Water sessions are designed to be fun-filled and yet be fruitful and engaging. Do keep following us at www.w4w.in for regular updates on all the sessions. We'll quickly move on to today's session as we have Meet a Maestro. So the Friday Water Meet a Maestro is about understanding the life spent by our legendary speakers and their contribution to not only water sector, but also are related to its profession, its pedagogy, and the built environment as we are talking about it today. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava from the House of W4W. We welcome you all once again, and I would like to also congratulate all the speakers who have spoken on our platform, nearly 600 of them, and also all my team for helping us bring this conversation series to nearly 400 sessions, making us one of the longest water conversation ever taken place. Today in Meet a Maestro, we have Mr. Manu Bhatnagar to share his insights on Delhi waterscapes, present, past, and future. We have written it in different way, but because Delhi is having very interesting present situation, so I said it differently. Before I invite Manu Bhatnagar, I would like to have a brief introduction of him from our side. Manu Bhatnagar is an urban and environmental planner with over 30 years of experience in environmental sector. He heads the Heritage Division on as a principal director in tech. He's also an alumni of Cornell University with qualification in regional planning. He's also having qualifications in strategic management, strategic environmental assessment, ecology and habitat management, environmental law, conservation of rivers and lakes, ecosystem services, and sustainable development, disaster management, and so on. He has worked in India and in Southeast Asia on diverse projects ranging from urban regional environmental planning to cultural documentation, river conservation, lake management, water policy, sustainable agriculture, urban biodiversity, and many more. With this vast experience he has also in his life, and also dedicated his life to taking care of water bodies as natural heritage. In fact, personally, if I say, the first document I saw during my postgrad and afterwards in my MPhil was something which he actually did for Delhi. So I'm so honored to have you, Manu Bhatnagar, today. It was a long wait for us to have you at W4W, and especially having you as Meet a Maestro. I now invite you to really have your opening remarks as well as your presentation. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Mansee. And I also thank all who are attending this session. Water is, of course, a critical sector nowadays. And so there is a surfeit of seminars on some issue connected with water, particularly in Delhi. Water is really a vast sector. There is science, there is infrastructure, which is within the city and external to the city. There are utilities. There are statistics of demand and supply, water tariffs, law, all kinds of things connected with water. So for me, to cover this Delhi waterscapes, it was quite challenging as to how I should formulate this and how to structure this talk. So I decided to try and understand what would be meant literally by Delhi waterscapes. And I thought it would mean physical features, topography, hydrogeology, natural and man-made features, the legal framework, and so on. So we'll touch on many of these aspects briefly, but to start with, we'll have to go into the past. So with your permission, I'd like to switch to the presentation.
Yes, please.
Let me just open it. I hope it is on the screen.
Not yet. I'll inform you. Yeah.
Is it? Hello?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Should I try and share it again?
Yes, please. Yes, it's on screen and slideshow will please.
Do we have it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry. So I would now proceed with the presentation. If I go back in history, the Saraswati River is, I think, well known to many as a lost river. And we sitting in Delhi are on the Yamuna. So why would I talk about Saraswati? Well, thousands of years ago, the Yamuna was a tributary to the Saraswati. And due to some major tectonic events in the Himalayas, the Yamuna actually changed its course and became a tributary to the Ganga. And that is how it is where it is. And this location, which is central to the northern Indian plains, came to be uh, habited as maybe in the first to start with. And gradually over time, several cities came to occupy this area. We have at least, seven historic cities by name. And Indraprasth is actually where the old fort, Purana Kila, is. So we have this painting which depicts some of these cities. And even this list is not really the same for, from different sources. Different sources give different cities. But the point which I'm trying to make is that as time passed, the cities grew larger, the population became bigger, and the cities moved closer and closer to the Yamuna River. From the hills of the southern ridge, the Aravali outcrop, the cities started moving towards the newer settlements, started getting located closer and closer to the Yamuna. Now, one of the reasons for this was that there was, the boat transport was possible. Yeah. So ease of transportation was an issue, and so the Yamuna, which enabled transport from downstream as well as upstream, was very suitable as a location. Now, these are some of creative paintings which depict the different cities, and Tughlakabad, which is close to SPA on the ring road, was actually on the Yamuna. Basically, Yamuna was where the ring road is in that area. So these are various cities, and their water sources. You can see horse cars over there, and you may see some of the major drainage channels which are still present on the ground, and which were the water sources for those cities. Now, Shahjahanabad was the medieval city made around 1630s, 1640 or so. And as you can see, it was right bang on the Yamuna. And this was the Salimgarh Fort, which was like a kind of an island in the Yamuna, and the city was also serviced by this canal, and which also has a background, and we'll just come to that. As you can see that the water from that canal came through the central lane, the central artery, which is Chandni Chowk today, and came to the moat around the Red Fort, and then exited back into the Yamuna. And we had this city, Tughlakabad. Tughlakabad, you may have been there. The fort is abandoned, and um, these were its water sources. There are, some step wells within the fort, but there were also, two, you can call them check dams or bunds, which stop the runoff from the Aravallis, from the southern ridge. And in these areas, there are lithographs of the 19th century which show this entire area full of water. So this is that lithograph. And you can see that this entire area was like a jheel, and these were what were the water sources. But with the passage of time, you can see that road was punctured through the Bandh, and so as a water source, it is no longer functional. Delhi also had in its different locations a series of check dams list, which is available over here. But as we changed over to tube wells and piped water supply, all these local sources began to disappear, and today there's hardly any trace of them. And of course, the step wells also came into play. We have in Meroli the Rajon Ki Baoli and others. And we have the Agsen Baoli, which is in Connaught Place area, the step well in the Tughlakabad Fort, and also another one. You can see this one. This is at the tomb of Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia. This is Nizamuddin. Now, this was this is the Satpula. Satpula, the reason being because of these arches, 7 of them, and this brought water to Khirki, and the ridge runoff was held behind it, and gradually these, you can see these slits which were for raising and lowering of the sluice gates, and which enabled the water to be released for the use of the city on the downstream side. And now we move on to the map of 1807. You can see, all these old cities, they were located within this triangle. A very defensive position. On one side, you have the river, and on the other side, you have the ridge. So most of these old cities, they were located within this triangle. And what also happened was that the Tughlaq Canal, made by the Tughlaq dynasty, by I think Firoz Shah Tughlaq, in 13th century, was extended by Ali Wardi Khan, and that brought water from the Yamuna to Delhi. And for the first time, Delhi got water from the Yamuna through the Red Fort, and that serviced the Shahjahanabad city. Now, I would also like to tell you that the ridge is the watershed of Delhi. All the drainage on the west of the ridge goes to the Najafgarh drain, or the Sahibin Nadi of old, and on the east of the ridge, all the drainage goes to the Yamuna. So that is why you have several of these old rivulets, which are still on the ground, but of course now being used as sewage channels, other than in the monsoon. So this is a bit of detail about the Tughlaq Canal, and it takes off from near Karnal and comes all the south, almost 75 miles, and then services Delhi through what is the Delhi Tail Distributory. And this canal was then, it fell into disuse after the Mughals, then again repaired by the British in 1815, again repaired further on in 1840, and so on. That was a period of great canal building during in Europe and particularly in Britain. And so they also had a focus on canals over here. That was the time when the Upper Ganga Canal was also commenced, and the Eastern Yamuna Canal was also commenced. So they repaired these canals, and to date, they continue to serve Delhi. Now, a braid of the Yamuna passed, as was shown in the previous maps, through between the Salimgarh Fort and between the Red Fort. This bridge is still there on the ground, and we pass through it. Traffic goes through this bridge now, and this is exactly where the Red Fort is at the moment. The ring road is at the moment. And at that time, you can see there was sufficient water that you could take large boats through this channel. And yet another painting. This is Delhi before 1857. And here again, you can see this was the connecting bridge between Salimgarh and Red Fort, which we were talking about. But there was also this bridge of boats, which extends all the way across the Yamuna, which later on became the pontoon bridge. And you still had, you can see very large boats taking cargo across this channel, servicing the city. And then, as you can see, post 1857, the city began to spread out of the Shahjahanabad area, and newer areas began to be, colonized. And a little bit about the Yamuna here. Various barrages began to come up on it. So we have, the Wazirabad barrage, which was meant for diverting water from the Yamuna for drinking water supply. ITO barrage, which is near SPA, that came up in order to service the power plant, which was over here, the ITO power plant. And the Okhla barrage came up over here for diverting water to the Agra Canal, taking water to Agra. And gradually embankments came up on both sides, and the river got jacketed. But even as late as 1971, there was enough water in the river for it to be navigable. There were 6 ferries which were in use for crossing the Yamuna, because earlier we had just 1 or 2 bridges. And now, of course, we have several. But before that, people could cross using the ferry boats. And so there were 6 places where we had ferries. Now, the soil strata of Delhi has much to do with its water situation. And you can see that this is the quartzite ridge. This is the area of what is the new alluvium. That is, after the Yamuna changed course from the west of the ridge to the east of the ridge, this is where the sediment deposits began. So this is the area of new alluvium. And on the west of the ridge, this is the area of old alluvium. Now, in the local languages, these areas had their own names. So you had the Khadar, which is the floodplain of the Yamuna, Bangar, which is slightly higher land, Dabar is the land which is on the west of the ridge, and Kohi is the hill zone or the Aravali ridge areas. So each of these have different groundwater conditions. Now, we come to those groundwater conditions that the Yamuna floodplain is very rich in groundwater. You can go down even as low as 300 300 meters and get fresh water. In the Dabar area, you get lesser, yields from groundwater, and in the Kohi area, the yields are even lower. Okay, so you have these groundwater maps from the Central Groundwater Board. They show you where you can get fresh water, where the water would be, saline. And so that also makes a difference in the groundwater scenario. A look at the rainwater conditions of Delhi. We all know that the average annual rainfall is around 650 mm, but that is not the case that it is uniform over the entire Delhi territory. So closer to the river, you would have the ISO heights tell you that the rainfall can be higher, 700 mm. And as you go westwards towards Haryana, it becomes drier, somewhat semi-arid, and the rainfall towards Najafgarh would be, something like 400 mm. A look at the major water bodies of Delhi. So this map depicts for you the remaining water bodies of Delhi, which are, of some significant size. We have a large number of village ponds still, but if we were to look at lakes being on scale somewhat larger than ponds, then these are the water bodies which we still have. So this map gives you those locations like Narayana or Hauskas or Shamsi, Sanjay Lake, Bhalaswa Lake, Jahangirpuri, Seelampur, and some of these lakes like Najafgarh Jheel. They are now not really functional on the Delhi side, although the depression is very much there. But we'll come to that in a moment. So basically, this is the typology of the water bodies which are there in Delhi. We'll just look at them in the next slides. So this is the Najafgarh Jheel map of 1840. We at INTAC are leading a PIL and the National Green Tribunal to save this jheel. And in fact, it was denied earlier in court that there is any such jheel. But all these maps were evidence. They were produced as evidence. And then, of course, the ground situation as well showed the existence of this jheel. So if we are able to get favorable orders from the tribunal, then I think we would be in a position to bring this jheel back to life in the Delhi side as well. It is still existent on the Gurgaon side, as this picture shows you. This is a picture taken from the Bandh, which divides Delhi from Haryana. And you can see this is the water on the Haryana side, about 5 square kilometer spread. So I'm not talking about something insignificant. It's very significant. And the biodiversity on these water bodies is also very diverse. And these are some of the habitats which we would be losing if we don't conserve our water bodies. During the floods of 1995, Suresh Rohila, who's here on listening to us, he and we visited the Najafgarh Jheel during that flood in order to take these photographs. Now we come to Bhalaswa Lake. Now, Bhalaswa Lake it's actually Oxbow Lake on the floodplain of the Yamuna, that is in the Khadar of the Yamuna, and it was known as the Horseshoe Jheel in the older maps, but now known as Bhalaswa Lake because the Bhalaswa dairy and Bhalaswa village are over here. This arm of the Bhalaswa lake has vanished under the Bhalaswa landfill site. And what you are left with is only the southern arm of the lake, which you can see here. And this is also not something small. This is as large as the Nainital Lake. Okay, a half square kilometer in area. But again, facing severe pollution problems. Now, these were some attempts made in 2001 by INTAC and the Department of Irrigation and Flood Control to refill the lake because on occasions it would become quite dry. And this water was brought in naturally through the backflow of the Yamuna in floods, through the supplementary drain and into the into the Jheel, into the Balaswa Jheel. You can see it's quite a large affair. Again, the quarries in the southern ridge were another, uh, lot of these quarries were lying unused. In early 90s, the quarrying of red stone and Badapur, that was banned. And then these areas began to revive again. And many of these quarries were just lying empty. Some training of the local drainage was done. And in the August of 1996, pit number 12 was shown as a demonstration. In just one rainfall towards the end of August 96, we had such results, which really helped to recharge the uh, aquifer in that area. Now, of course, since then, it has become a Solabhati wildlife sanctuary, and we have more water bodies like this, what is now called Bhardwaj Lake. Okay, this is just at the border with Haryana. Again, a pretty large water body, and the water is very clean and you know very it's really very clean and attracts many birds in winter. The Jahangirpuri marshes, North Delhi, again, you can see that gradually, despite our efforts, this 1 square kilometer area, this was actually extending further westwards. Entire area of marshes, which has gradually been colonized, as you can see, all these things, all these building areas, utilities, they are creeping up and depriving us of these marshes. We have tried and are still trying to get the government to listen and conserve these areas as water, groundwater recharge sources. Just a little to the west, you can see how all the marsh areas are getting colonized. The marshes are gradually disappearing as the built activity colonizes all these areas. You can see all these marshes and roads have been laid out. So let us hope for them. Now, this is in the southern ridge, and you can see, if we have smaller water bodies also, then they sustain tube wells and they also sustain biodiversity. And this is in the cantonment area. So basically, the role of water bodies is, detaining storm water. Today, urban floods are a big, threat, and that is partly because many of our water bodies have been colonized, and so the water has, no place to sink in. So, recharge of the aquifer, biodiversity habitat, and even local microclimate modification. You would be surprised to know that while we have heard of urban heat islands, but there is also a kind of a cooling island. So the studies show that about up to 1 kilometer distance from the Yamuna channel, you have lower temperatures than the rest of the city. So there is a cooling effect of large water bodies. And now we come to Hausa Khas. So you can see this is the Survey of India map of 1936. The area around is quite, empty. You have small villages, but today the map shows the area chock-a-block full of buildings and colonies. So the Hause, which was receiving water from the southern ridge, became completely dry. As you can see in this photograph, that the 15-acre water body was completely dry in 2004. Now we worked with the DDA, and there was actually, no real channel to bring the water from the southern ridge left to revive the lake. So we had no option but to use the water of the Vasant STP, bringing it through Sanjay 1 in a natural channel, the check dams over there, which showed that while the rest of the area had a water table at about 70 feet below the ground, in a well next to our check dam, this tablet shows that this well was made in 1961. The water was at just 15 feet. Okay, so these structures actually work as good recharge structures, and water harvesting can really help if done scientifically. And so that water cleaned up through various natural processes. Here it enters the households. And ultimately, when we completed the project way back in 2006, 7, we left it in this condition. A full 15-acre water body, recharging the groundwaters in the aquifer in that area. The Google imagery also started reflecting it, and it also became home to biodiversity. These are common pochards, which are really uncommon. And there are many more species which come over here. We had introduced a lot of fish. So kingfisher, herons, also cormorants can be found over there. And March 2003, we had tested the groundwater. And in April 2013, we, after 10 years of the project, we retested the groundwaters. And I can assure you that with a little chlorination or filtration, this is drinking water quality. Okay. So you see, many people talk about supplying the treated sewage water to houses as dual purpose and so on. It's not going to work. And it once this water goes through the ground, the source of the water becomes different in people's minds. They accept the same water, but now it's for them it is groundwater. And of course, the ground filtration also really helps to upgrade the water quality. Now, this is Satpura, which is part of the Siri Jahanpana city area, and it was this is the downstream area of Satpura, which we spoke about a while ago, and it was lying completely dry. So Rotary Club sponsored this project and asked us to see how the lake could be revived. And using the wastewater flowing into the, in the drain, Chirag Delhi drain, which is just abutting this side of the lake, uh, we were able to treat that through a natural, nature-based system. And you can see the lake was revived. And even in 1 year, my estimate is that about 1.5 crore liters of water have been recharged to the ground. And this is when we left the lake in the care of DDA. And it has attracted biodiversity. We have got moorhens, we have got grebes, uh, water hens, and even a couple of tortoises who have come there on their own. So it's a ecosystem getting revived. Now, bulk of the water bodies of Delhi are the village ponds, which are surrounding the old abadis of the villages. Now, there's something very interesting over here that all the villages of Delhi are on a kind of a hillock, about 4 to 5 meters higher than the peripheral areas. Now, how would I say that? Is because this is a contour map of Kakrola village, a major village. And this shows that the surrounding road is up at a contour meter level of say 100 for reference. Then the center of the old Abadi is about 6 meters higher. Now, how does that help? It helps because the rainwater runoff from this little hillock that moves to the ponds which are on the periphery. Okay. And this is so in village after village. But now, with that hunger for land, uh, more colonization, redensification, uh, all these catchments are, suffering. And the ponds are receiving soil water. So eutrophication, that is, they are getting full of hyacinth and other weeds. That is the general condition. But more than that, we also find that there is a great interest on the part of the engineering departments to, somehow expand concrete and masonry and convert these natural water bodies into tanks. Okay, and sort of clean up by way of making these walls around them and restricting their areas, interfering with the local runoff and so on. And this is so case after case. Just see this in 2004, this particular village pond. It's a area which is got a lot of wild vegetation, but they could not hold themselves back, and somehow this is the result in 2030. Okay, and this is so in many, many cases. You can see this one, it was a large area with the wild vegetation, functioned as a good habitat, but we have made it into a tank. But even so, in some cases, you attract a lot of biodiversity in these small water bodies also. Okay, a comb duck, a spoonbill duck, pelicans. So Delhi could have a sort of fragmented uh, bird sanctuary in these 400 remaining ponds, village ponds of Delhi. Now, this is again the 1936 Survey of India map, and this is on the Narela side, North Delhi. And you can see that we located this map way back in 1994 from an antique bookshop in Shimla. And in this map, it shows this S-shaped water body. Now, this was 1936. And in 2014, I sent some staff to have a look at what is there now. And actually, they found that, this part had disappeared. This had also disappeared. And what remained was some, this curve, okay, which was not small, about 14 hectares. Now, we found that this was not in the protected list of the government. And so we started writing to the Lieutenant Governor. Now you can see that the water body goes like this. And this was before we started writing. But the moment we started writing to the authorities, uh, the locals, the engineers, they got wind of it. And this was in January 2015. And in October 2015, see the same image and look at this encroachment within the lake. Then we had to go to court, and then the court pronounced, that this has to be protected. So it is status quo at the moment. We hope the authorities will, listen to us and revive this lake. It's not a small one, 14 hectares, and save it. Close to this is this uh, 6 hectare tank, once known as Rani Chandravati tank, then Mughal tank, and now nobody calls it by any name. But 6 hectares is again not a small thing. It's lying dry. Narela is an area which is low on groundwater, and the DDA was planning to make a cricket stadium in this. So fortunately, we stepped up in time, and this scheme was prepared from the Narela STP to send a pipeline across the National Highway 1 and revive a series of water bodies here. This is the Tikri Lake, which I just showed you. Singhola, which is one of the village ponds. Then we come further up and we have this is the tank which I just spoke about. So all these water bodies would get revived. Now, all this is also by way of recycling our treated wastewater and thus having a kind of a circular resource arrangement. In fact, we located three tanks in this area, which would all be serviced by this arrangement. Now, the pipeline has gone across, but beyond that, the pumping has not begun, and we are still waiting for results. This is that 6 hectare tank. You can see it's about, this is 5 meters deep. And all this space would have become some kind of a cricket playing stadium. And hopefully now it will be a water body in due course. The National Remote Sensing Agency also prepared maps of Delhi as of the rest of the country, which showed certain water bodies. And as per the Supreme Court orders of 8th February 2017, this by the way is Balaswale, the lakes which are recorded in the National Remote Sensing Agency's atlas, they are all having legal protection. But on the ground, the position is different. And unless citizenry is alert, still we would lose some of these water bodies. Censuses were conducted by INTAC. In 2002, we came across 500 plus water bodies. Then Tapas claimed that there were 693. Then Tapas again in 2007 claimed 793. And Delhi Parks and Garden Societies, they said that there are 1,000 water bodies, but then you go in detail and you find that they write these are encroached, these are under dispute. And so actually you have only around 440 water bodies in Delhi. And the National Capital Region Planning Board data showed that the water spread in Delhi had reduced in terms of area from earlier from 1.64% of the total area of Delhi to 1.52. Now we have a district system in Delhi now, 11 districts. But before the districts came into being, we had administrative blocks. So Alipur, Kanjhavla, Najafgarh, City, Mehrauli, Shadra block, and so on. Now, why I'm telling this is that each of these blocks were actually a small, watershed, and each of them was serviced by a major drain. So you had drain number 6 over here for Alipur block, Bhavana drain for Kanjhavla, Najafgarh drain for Najafgarh block. For Mehrauli, you had Chirag Dili, and for Shadra, you have Shadra drain. So these were, sub basins of the Yamuna in a sense, and each of them was around a major drain. So it's time now to look at the drainage network of Delhi. Now, this is a map by Irrigation Flood Control Department, and it shows these major drains as well as, their smaller tributaries. And so this is the natural drainage system of Delhi, small rivulets, which in much older maps were shown as, being perennial, partly because the water table was very high. And, even post monsoon, that water table would seep into the drainage system and keep these rivulets flowing. Now, these are some of those channels. Again, in Chanakyapuri, you have this ridge stream coming off the central ridge. You have this is the Barapulla, which goes through Defense Colony. Now, today you'll find it as dry, except with a conduit running in its center, which carries wastewater. But in the monsoons, we have these photographs showing you it's a real torrent. The Najafgarh drain upstream of the Najafgarh Jheel, also having pretty clean water still. The supplementary drain, which was made to relieve Najafgarh drain, and you can see it's a huge, having a huge width, and but this is all wastewater going to Yamuna. Okay. So now we have a look at Yamuna itself. And Yamuna has, in the master plan, it's given the status of Zone O. Zone O is the area of the remaining floodplain within the right and left main embankments. And that area varies in width, from 1.5 kilometers to even 3 kilometers at some points. The river within Delhi is around 48 kilometers long, and between Wazirabad and Okla Barrage, it's about 22 kilometers long. And below the floodplains of the Yamuna are the most copious aquifers of Delhi, which is the reason why we must really prevent colonization of the floodplain. North Delhi, you have above the, upstream of the Wazirabad barrage, you have areas still which are natural uh, with a lot of riparian vegetation. You have habitats, and these grasses also help to hold the soil, preventing erosion of the banks. The Yamuna itself has migrated somewhat eastwards, away from the walls of Red Fort, and these different colors depict the various position of the courses at different points of migration. The banks of the Yamuna were surveyed by us for biodiversity, and there's a lot of microfauna there, and of different types. I'm showing you only one slide. Strange name, water boatman. Okay. The fish. 1975 Gazette of Delhi mentions around 63 species of fish in the river. And there are a lot of very interesting stories about the size of the fish. A pertler species known as goonch, huge size. Okay, but they have all vanished, and now you have only around 4 or 5 species left. And that too because of the uh, polluted waters, they are stunted in size. Okay, very small. So fishermen who could fold up their day's work in an hour now have to, sit the whole day and still not get the same kind of catch. At Okla, we had the Okla Sailing Club, and you won't see these things now because the water is foul smelling, and you have just downstream of the barrage, you have this kind of foam every year. It makes the news, and we have not been able to solve these problems. Uh, the river becomes post monsoon, it shrinks and becomes really like a drain. But in the monsoons, there is a good flow. And when there is a really, intense burst of continuous rainfall in the hills, uh, you have these kind of floods. Okay, you can see it looks, dangerous. But with the passage of time, the city became more and more urbanized, and with the densification and re-densification, a lot of our natural features have been trampled upon as the city has advanced onto the countryside. And so we have an uncertain water future. The supply side options have become constrained. You cannot keep on milking distant basins like Bhakra and Yamuna, Ganga, because there are other places which are also having demands. And how much water is there in the river? That is a finite quantity. So our aquifers have depleted. So that was another very major source for Delhi, but it is being exploited unsustainably. More extraction, less recharge, and so on. We have an Upper Yamuna Accord signed in 1993 to share water between the riparian states. It will be coming for review by the end of this year. And the upper upstream states, particularly Haryana, are desperate because for Haryana, that is the only source of water. So, and they all feel that Delhi is pampered. And so they are going to try very hard to reduce Delhi's allocation. And in order to capture all the water in the river, now, two more dams, one Lakhor Vyasi in the Doon Valley and Renuka Dam have been commenced. Okay. Now, basically in Delhi, this is the situation. Our demand is going up all the time. The river supply is going down and the groundwater is also going down. So if we move on a business as usual scenario, we will have this situation. The gap between demand and supply will keep on rising. There will be more aquifer depletion, and there will be greater pressure on to build more dams in the Himalayas. In fact, the Indian Himalayas have the highest density of dams in the world. These are other scenarios, uh, but what we can do is that now, instead of working on the supply side, if we work on the demand side, managing our demand, reducing our demand through efficiencies, then we have a position, a possibility where our supply rises through recycling. That's part of the circular approach. And our demand declines through efficiency and conservation. Okay. And the water which is so saved would allow the river to flow better, would enable our aquifers to be nourished better. Okay. So we have these scenarios, and for this to, to move from this business as usual to the desirable scenario, we need to have a water policy and implement that policy. Now, policy was made way back in 2015, but so far we have heard of no government in Delhi talking about demand management or about recycling. Okay, now this is the population projections of Delhi, and generally I found that the government agencies like DDA, they like and Delhi government, they like to project very large populations beyond the actual likely scenario in order to garner more resources, in order to stake higher claims. But Population Foundation of India made more accurate projections for the 2011 uh, census. This was their projection, and this was the Census of India result. But as you can see, the other agencies are all over projecting. Okay. Now, Population Foundation projected for 21, 20.48, and based on the growth rate, by 2051, this is what we would have. So we take this as 27 million based on what is the possible population density in Delhi as per master plan. So in 51, we have to cater for 27 million people. Now, another aspect of water is what is the consumption norm? So the Central Public Health Environmental Engineering Organization has laid down a supply norm in urban areas of 172 liters per capita per day. Okay. And if on this basis we see as to what is the water to be supplied, we come to 1018 million gallons per day in 2051. Okay. But when in 2021, this is what should be required. Delhi is already getting something like 210 liters per person per day. It may not be equitably distributed, but on the macro figures divided by the population show that we are getting, in excess, much better than say Bangalore or so. But again, if you have projections of population higher than these figures, you would be asking for more. Okay. Now, National Water Commission has lowered the norm to 160. Okay. And on that basis, in 51, you need only 947. Okay. And the supply norm can keep on declining with better management. Okay. We really do not need so much of water per person per day if we are efficient. Okay. Now, Delhi is getting water from the Yamuna, from Ganga River, that is from Tehri, you're getting from Bhakra. So you're milking all the northern basins. And then within Delhi, the official tube wells, and this is somewhat older data, you are getting this 80 mgd. So you are getting already 947 mgd from official sources. And there are thousands of private tube wells at work, working away to lower the aquifer of Delhi. Now, beyond these, what we would say is beyond this 947, we have rainwater recharge potential, okay, of about which could yield around 50 million cubic meters or 30 mgd. The recycled wastewater potential is also very high. So we have this kind of availability even at present. Okay, so we don't need these dams, but the driver of these dams is absolutely different. Okay, for example, in Renuka Dam, you don't even get electricity. It's a mere 48 megawatts. Okay, now if we start recycling our water, then even and if we also start curtailing the pipeline losses, which at present are supposed to be around 40%. Okay, so with as we cut down our losses, then 765 mgd plus 400 mgd. Now that would be the water availability much more than what we require even in 22. And the figure goes on, and all this is based upon 172 LPCD. Okay. Now we can lower this norm gradually to 100 LPCD. Okay. And in that case, what would happen is that we can spare much more water for the river to flow in a healthy manner, and also enable our aquifers to actually come up, the water table to move up. First stabilize and then actually move up and start contributing base flow to the rivers. So from supply side, we need to move on to the demand side. And from a linear approach, we need to move on to a circular approach. So way back in 97, 98, Suresh, me, we made these blueprints for water augmentation of Delhi. There are many, many aspects of this. We would not have the time to go into that. But this one plan captures all the kinds of proposals like floodplain reservoirs, value channels, the water bodies, even at village levels, the quarries, and so on, which I've already shown you. And this plan was made in 1998, and parts of that are, being implemented off and on in a, I would say, ad hoc manner, not in a systematic manner. We have been through this. Yeah. So now the policy itself, which we made in 2015. So these are the major statements that Delhi will focus on demand management, that we would not follow the business as usual scenario. We would, move towards. Okay, sorry, some mistake here. We have been through this. Yeah, so our objective should be to ensure future water security, address the climate change situation, have resilience to that. The demand management should be emphasized over supply side management. The resource availability should be addressed through the circular approach of recycling. The freshwater footprint should be reduced so that all our natural water features can remain healthy and have more water. The river flow being enhanced. And for that, we also need to conserve our floodplains. The distribution losses, which are at the moment humongous, need to be curtailed and ultimately brought down to just 10%. So these are, we also would like to have a water device efficiency rating system, so that just like you have in electrical devices, you can have 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. The 5-star uses the least amount of electricity. So similarly, you can look at efficiency rating for water devices too. We laid out in the policy as to what will be the extent of recycled water usage in different years, but we are already, as you can see, in 2025, but nowhere near the policy requirements. Curtailing of losses I spoken about. Aquifer management is very important. The database in Delhi is also very weak. We do not really know where our water is going because the metering systems are not there. Many households do not have metering. Many of our pipelines do not have metering. For example, a sewage treatment plant does not have a metering system, would not know what is the amount of water it is treating and what is the amount of water going out. Okay, so we need to have a lot of metering in order to have move from a hazy database to a database which would allow evidence-based planning. Water audit of individual buildings and campuses is also important, so that everybody knows where they are losing water and where they can make interventions. So these are elements of the policy which are laid down. But now I'll just come to phosphates. You would have seen those images of the foam in the Yamuna, very disturbing. Now, many countries have banned the use of phosphates in detergents. Now, phosphates are only, they build up the size of the detergent. They don't play any useful role in the washing and cleaning, right? So, after much struggle in June 2022, the NGT came out with directions to the Delhi government that you may reduce your phosphates, detergents, the phosphate content in the detergents to 5%. Okay. Now, in the corporate sector, the detergents are down to 2 to 3% already, but many detergents which are being made in the non-organized sector, the level is as high as 35%. Okay, take a country like Canada, just 0.5%. That's half percent is the percentage of phosphates in detergents. Now that is where we need to move to, so that we have a beginning of the pipe solution to that pollution, rather than end of the pipe solution. So we can reduce. But now what happened was that even after that directive, I have not seen any enforcement by the government to do that. Okay. Now we also carried out an experiment on in the Delhi Cant. We carried out a demonstration for Army Wives Welfare Association using Rita powder. Now, Rita powder brought down the amount of water used in their washing machines. The washing machine detergent requires much more water to remove, but the Rita required much less water to remove. So there are, various herbal soaps available for cleaning, and that should be promoted because they have other qualities from the point of view of pollution. They are much having much lower impact than these detergents. Now we also now those of you who have seen the master plan of Delhi would know that the 2001 master plan laid down that the green belt on the western side of Delhi, that would be one village, one revenue village deep. So this would be an area where there would be hardly any, building activity, just around the village Abadi. So what we had proposed was, you would just recall that iso-height map, which I had shown you earlier, that you have lower rainfall in the western side of Delhi. So the idea was that if Delhi government were to make a dense tree plantation belt in the green belt, for one, we would be creating a barrier to the desert winds which flow in, blow in from the west, bringing in sand. We would also change the ISO heights of Delhi by bringing in more rain into the western side of Delhi, which would then flow through the softer landscape in the western side, and that would be the biggest water harvesting scheme in Delhi. But again, as you see, everywhere real estate is given more priority. And what has happened is now we have a green development policy, which is allowing, lot of building activity. And as you know, our government is unable to enforce regulations. So whatever norms they are laying out are bound to be exceeded. So I think we'll probably lose this green belt and all its positive effects as well. Now, a simple device like this, the aerator, which can be mounted onto various tap nozzles, We worked out that there would be about 20 million taps in Delhi, and if aerators are mounted on them, cost say about 30 crores for all taps in Delhi, take a maximum of 2 years, we would save as much water which we might get from the Renuka Dam. At the Renuka Dam would cost something like 10,000 crores, and instead of getting more water, we could reduce our usage by this simple device. Now, this is the kind of thing which needs to be given priority. Uh, Dry toilets wherever possible, which convert the excreta into compost rather than using flushing systems and so on. So I think I'll stop over here. I'm ready for any discussion or questions. You might still say that there are plenty of areas which I have not gone into, but I think there are certain time limitations. And as I said in the beginning, the sector is really very vast.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And I can completely understand that presenting Delhi from past to present to future isn't going to be easy. And of course, everything cannot be covered. But honestly speaking, I have not listened to so comprehensive water system of Delhi than today. So thank you so much, Manu, for this wonderful presentation. May I first request you to close the presentation so that we can start taking some questions and answers from you, and also some suggestions if there are for people. Very simply, to start the conversation, I would like to acknowledge to you as well as to all the participants here. This is the first time I learned that actually Delhi is not only water sufficient, but water surplus to not to my surprise, but to the surprise that despite losing so many of the water bodies. Another observation I want to just share before I invite the participants is it was very intriguing to see how the number of water bodies increased with the agencies measuring the water bodies. Probably it is because of the increasing land area of the city, because in Ahmedabad the numbers are decreasing. So that's a concern. So for me, that was big relief. I now open the floor for people to ask questions. I'm sure there are many questions with people, but of course, Suresh gets the first opportunity as a comrade with him. Over to you, Suresh.
Hi, Anshi, thanks a lot for picking up for me as a person. And Manu, thanks for acknowledging the work which we initiated long time ago. And to see that, yes, the process has been tardy, but I just wanted to add one more point that uh, you have been very kind enough to say that, if the demand was projected to be little lowered from 160 to 150 or 140, but actually the regulations say that all the new developments or redevelopments could be reduced to 80 or 120 LPCD. EIA regulations for new projects, new townships, and redevelopment. That's the law of the land. So drastically, Mansee, adding to your this thing that Delhi has abundant water supply. Now the point is whether we are allowing the new developments and redevelopments possibly could be done on a different norms. That is the big challenge. So just wanted to add that, and wanted to add that it reminded us of the work what we did in the past, which you are trying to say that the number of water bodies increase. It also depends when do you survey the water bodies, because in a monsoon country, usually it is very often understood that the water bodies will go dry. When you visit, it is not there; it's a low-lying area. Just wanted to correct that. So compliments to Manu, and thanks for bringing back the memories, start capturing all those things. This was one of the points that Delhi master plan, regional plan, all those things have incorporated. However, there is a big challenge in the practice. So all these measures, what are being presented, are reactive and curative. How do we move the elephant from in a preventive way? I think I would like to hear something if either speak or anybody else can tell. And these kind of things are being talked about across the country also. Thank you, Mansee.
Yeah. Thanks, Suresh. Manu, would you like to respond? And I can also invite Anjali at this point because we were talking before the presentation also. Over to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Suresh. At one point, I even mentioned that the norm could go down to as much as 100 LPCD. You have, of course, said 80. but it can only be done in stages. So now you see, when I had written this policy, that was way back in 2015. So at that time, even 100 was, quite revolutionary, and I got quite some flack for it. But fortunately, things are moving in that direction. Actually, it's the crisis situations which move these things. We don't seem to move by foresight and planning. Okay, we do these things in a reactive way. So uh, we are hopeful that many of the suggestions which we have made will be picked up, and they are being picked up. But and as I said, in an ad hoc and knee-jerk fashion. So I'm not, very confident about many of the things, because real estate is building activity is consuming many of our natural features, and even for what seems to me common sense, like the Najafgarh Chil. I have been fighting this case for now 11 years, and I'm quite sure that we will ultimately prevail, maybe by next year. But why should it happen that way? That we have to overcome so much of resistance. Imagine if the Najafgarh Chil was not there, what would be the fate of those now? Right now, they're drowned. They would be so badly drowned if that Chil wasn't there. Okay.
And just
Absolutely. I want to pose a question here to you, Manu, as I think it is very well gone into the heads of the developer and the local authorities that a lake lost is a land gained. And you beautifully articulated it as colonization of the water bodies. So I mean, in a master plan, at least after the National Lake Conservation Plan, the all the cities were meant to actually designate and delineate their water bodies. So two things happened in that process. Ahmedabad lost more than 520 lakes after the National Lake Conservation Plan, but that is the designation part. And you also showed some of the lakes in terms of delineation part, that how a natural lake is conveniently engineered into tanks in terms of delineating the scope of that water body to hold water. So as a student, because as I mentioned, I actually read your document as a first document when I started doing my master's on lakes. How do you see a policy that comes to save the lakes of the country ends up actually making many lakes out of their own identity as lands? I mean, I see, at least from my PhD, half of the lakes got lost as identity, and the remaining half got lost in terms of area. So, I mean, I also saw your policy guidelines and all, and it feels so nice that there is so well written guidelines. Local authorities are using some other tools to define lakes. What's your take on this?
See, a lake or a water body should be seen as, as a whole with its watershed, right? Now, we in our master plan just show a blue blob, and we look at the land around it as, a target for colonization. Basically,
Yes.
urbanization is colonization of the
Yes.
watershed. But
Yes.
when you are colonizing the watershed, let us not, forget its natural functions. We have
Yes.
to work with those natural functions so that the watershed continues to function as a watershed. So those lakes have to be seen with their watersheds. We need to have data upon their high flood levels, their topography. Now, all that has not been done. In a city like Hyderabad, there was a lot of controversy because the high flood levels of their lakes
Yes.
were not being defined. Okay,
Yes.
only they were being defined at in the lean season. Okay,
Yes.
when they were at their smallest spread. Okay, so now if authorities are going to function as agents of land developers and builders and so on, and even agency like DDA sees its major asset as land. Okay, and the revenues that it can garner from that land, then I think it's going to be difficult for our water features to, to be able to be saved or to survive this kind of onslaught. Now, they have to be given first place in the master plan. The urbanization is secondary. What should happen is that what was, after all, the NCR for? The NCR was for dispersing this concentration into the region. But
Yes.
what is really happening is that look at Gurgaon, it is standing at Delhi's doorstep. In fact, they are far, far poorer in terms of water resources. But the GMDA, the Haryana Urban Development Authority, for them, Najafgarh Jheel, Ghata Jheel, all these mean nothing. Okay. Underwater, it means nothing to them. Dry, it means multi-million crores. Okay.
Yes.
So, thing is, we have to change our approach. We don't need those dams for Delhi. I can tell you, we do not
Absolutely.
need a single dam for Delhi now. Okay, and gradually we should see that we, reduce our fresh water requirements and make do with minimal fresh water requirements and supplemented by recycled water resources.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you that I got a lot of flack from Oscars and Green Park residents when we first brought in the treated sewage into Oscars. Oh, what have you done? Right. But the same people are using that groundwater in the adjacent colonies, and which is being recharged by this lake. Okay. And for them, it is good water. So what I'm saying is that you need to work on people's hydrological literacy as well, which is very low. You have to tell them that this is the situation and this is how we have to go about it. So right now, still many people continue to feel that water is going to come from the tap, but what is there
Yes.
on the other side of the tap? Okay,
So
so
I just, yeah, sorry. Sorry, please go
yeah,
ahead.
go on.
So, yeah. So, Suresh, I'm coming to you, and I request all the participants, if you have something to add here or question, we will take it very briefly now. But you made a very interesting remark on the way policy should be on, that it should be demand-driven policy, whereas the politics of water is all supply-driven policy. Water policy is usually a supply-driven policy, and it's of course driven by politics. And you are suggesting some changes not only at the master plan but also as a behavioral change within communities and citizens. I mean, Delhi has to lead by example. That is why for me this today's session is extremely important, because with your session we are also starting Riverscape series. Once every month we are going to take some major cities across the country. I want to understand from you, why cannot we turn the table as you have rightly proposed as demand driven, and what will it take for learned citizens like Delhi to also bring that behavioral change? Do we have to knock every door to tell that they have to we have to bring a behavioral change, or incentivize, or bring some sanctions? Or I mean, Delhi already has more than the national average, and also the right which is given to us as 160 LPCD. Where do you think we can bring this behavioral change, if at all we are going to follow the demand driven approach? I mean, it is for across the country, because for me, as I mentioned, Delhi has to lead by example. Suresh, do you want to add here, or you have something else
Yeah,
to ask?
I can say, add something. I wanted to answer partly your question, what you said, that
Okay.
on the lake thing, to say that what happens in the catchment is reflected on in the lake. If the catchment is not properly developed, where I bring in the idea of land management or land development through whatever design or planning. And in this particular case, I have advanced the work which Manu and I started later on to find that within the planned area, within the city area, there are 17,000 parks. And none of the park, 17,000 parks, can you believe it? And I will stand
Yes.
corrected. This is from the all the area. And these parks are in the localities which we all live. And it answers your question that people are not connected with water. They're extracting groundwater to green these parks. and groundwater is declining, and there is so land development and water management, they have to go together.
Absolutely. We
And the
have to start
sensitivity
making
of this.
development plan as
So,
land and water use development plan
so
instead
one
of
is to
land use
talk
plan.
about what Manu was saying, talk about regional plan and all those things. But we should
Hmm.
not forget that at every scale there are opportunities available, and none of those
Absolutely.
opportunities should be left. And
Absolutely.
communities should engage with that, and they will only engage then. At the moment, we don't want to store water even in a small flower wash, because we
Hmm.
think there is a dengue because of that. The point is
Hmm.
that we go and we pay for 30,000 rupees per night for a lake view or sea view apartment, and
Yes,
when we go out, but we don't want to see water next to us. I think this has to change if we really need to connect with people. So we need
absolutely.
to. I think that is what is there. The 17,000 parks and water bodies being created or designed through design, bringing water back. I just wanted to say
Mhm.
that. So,
Yes.
and 17,000 parks, Manu, is a big space where innovation and innovative design and planning can bring back water into the heads of water, I think, or heads of people actually.
Yeah, so cooling points, as he was mentioning, no, those parks and lakes are cooling points. Heat island ki jagah cool islands. Over
Yeah.
to you, Manu. Yeah.
But if I may just say, respond over there, that these all the hardening of space of our surface areas, the concretization,
Mm,
which is creating this huge runoff.
mm,
And
Mm,
it simply cannot be managed by no matter which government comes in and makes
mm,
all kinds of tall claims. It
mm.
will not go away, okay,
Yes.
unless you de-seal the pavements and so on, because
Mm.
this is the water which belongs to Delhi, but which is
Yes.
being sent away from Delhi. Okay,
Yes.
that's one. The other thing is now you can see that all talk of rainwater harvesting has also been abandoned this year. Okay, we
Yes.
have had copious rainfalls. Till last year, the government was making some noises just before the monsoon uh, that the water harvesting, rainwater harvesting, this, that. But now, even the DJB's schemes of rainwater harvesting have been stopped.
Oh,
So,
no, but they were only rooftop. We are not talking about rooftop the
I
level. So that is
understand. I
yes.
understand you can do
so.
water
So
harvesting
they were
so
of no
many.
use otherwise also. Not much use.
No, whatever little use they may be, but we have spoken about macro water harvesting that is on the drainage
Yes.
system itself.
Yes.
You can do so much. For example, if we were to start talking about the legal aspect also, the Mali, say, Nirmal Yamuna case,
Mm.
which Manoj Mishra ji had
Yes.
initiated, in 2015, the direction was given for the first time that drains will not be concretized, and that was an
Yes.
all India order. Okay.
Yes. I do remember
And you
that.
know
Yes.
that many of our agencies are very happy to start pouring concrete into drains. And in fact, I can tell you that in Defense Colony over the Barapula, the Defense Colony people allowed it, and today they are regretting it. Okay. A small 1.3 kilometer length, 45 crore rupees were spent. Everybody made their pile. But the recharge in that area completely stopped. The open, aeration which used to take place of that water now is coming out as stink into the colony. Okay, because of
Mm.
anaerobic conditions. Okay, so we are also responsible, and that is why I said that hydrological literacy is very important for
Absolutely.
the general population as well. We can't just be recipients of whatever the powers that we do. We have to influence those policies.
Absolutely. I think this conversation can go on and on from the dams that we don't need to the demand way approach of writing water policies. And no better day than today's Independence Day. I hope that we start thinking water very differently and free ourselves from the cement, concrete, and land-based approach of planning. If there are no pressing questions from anyone, I would actually, before that you are thinking, I would like to announce some wonderful sessions coming next week, and so that all our participants are around and take cognizance of it. Next Friday, actually, we have Thesis Club session co-organized with IAS Asia on August 22, where we actually go to China. We look at transformation of canal and groundwater irrigation, governance in the rural China. We have a student who is from IASC, and I know her, and she is very keen to present it to our Indian audience. Next Wednesday, our signature series, we have biodiversity series with Mahasi Trust. I hope Steve is also here. On August 20th at 5 p.m. IST, we will discuss the Mahasir, the river gods, and all the information will be there on the website of www.w4w.in. As you know, Monday we celebrate for women's participation in water sector. This Monday, which is next week, August 18th, on Monday, Munching and Musing with Women for Water, we have a powerhouse woman, Dr. Madhu Verma, at 5 p.m. IST, talking about her life journey in the water sector, along with the biodiversity. Along with this next week's announcement, I am also pleased to share with you next month. We are also coming up with our 2025 Water Festival. End of September, rest is surprise. We are going to come up with all the information, hopefully next week with on our website. So I'm now open for any last questions if you have for Manu, because I have like full of questions, but I think I have to hold my emotions and give way to some
Um,
participants and we'll close them.
so,
Anjali,
if I may,
please.
I'm Anjali, and it's more in the form of a remark and or
Sure.
observations rather than a question. So, the thing is that I work in some capacity with the central government,
Mm-hmm.
and what I find is, you know, at some level there is a recognition of these issues, and the Amrut 2 program, it
Mm-hmm.
focuses on sustainable aquifer management, and they're listing water bodies, and then we go on to the scheme that right now what I'm working on
Mm-hmm.
is a scheme for special assistance, and that has a section on sponge cities
Mm,
and
yes.
interlinking of greens. And
Mm,
we have these concepts, the concepts that are being talked about, but somehow what I find is that it's like in the initial part of this discussion so there was a thing that how come Anjali is there in this. So I mean, I don't find any sort of animosity towards this topic. I'm very much attuned to it. But
mm-hmm.
then how is it that despite that recognition at the higher policy level, somehow when we come down to a local level,
Mm,
we find that you know these are not being how come? Because then one thing I thought about when I heard all these discussions is that, see, you have all good intentions. You want
yes.
river centric development, you want river centric planning guidelines. So there are these
Mm,
river centric planning guidelines now, okay? But whenever you go and plan, then you find that it is a concretization. Why?
yes.
Because maybe the people, the engineers, the PWD, the main department doing these, they're simply not aware. And they, when they implement these schemes, they are full of those take out this much land for development and monetize this and build this, like the Sabarmati riverfront kind of thing.
Oh, we are going to have a discussion on it very soon. Wait for it. So we are starting a riverfront series also actually because it's much required. So Anjali, I just want to close the conversation here with the point that with good intention, inception of the project, there is something which is lost in the process in implementation. And I think personally, to me, that is a loss of conscience and the common sense that's lost in mostly actually in education. I think we are over educated to manage water, but personally I feel we have to have water conversation as much as possible in public domain, and that is probably one of the reason why we started these conversations. If not being there at the policy room, which Manu has all his life, and we saw his impact, the way Intact has impacted the Delhi's waterscapes in positive ways, in many ways for that matter. So until you are in the policy room, at least we can talk about it and make more and more people aware. After all, we have to think that everyone means good. And on the lighter note, if we can stop pouring cement concrete on water bodies as a simple mantra, I think we will free ourselves and we can take that pledge on this Independence Day. Any last line from you, Manu? And we will close now.
Yes, just responding to Anjali,
Yes.
that there needs to be much greater coincidence and coordination between the policy level and between the level of practice, because
Yes.
as those values which are spoken about at the higher levels, they don't seem to transmit to the executing or implementing level. At that point, many things happen. Besides, you see, in government, there is that tenacity of tenure is not there. An officer feels he is there for 2 years. Should he be at loggerheads with the implementing staff, which he depends upon? Okay, after 2 years, he would be, doing something else. We can talk about these things because we have been doing these things from 1996.
Yes.
Okay. One could, I could also have jumped from water to interiors to architecture and something else or the other. But you need that constancy in order to, bring these things to the ground. And I don't claim any credit, but those of us who have worked with tenacity in in the water sector, we have at least mainstreamed much of this terminology in the official conversations as well. At least those words are there. That's why Amrut and so on are also talking about these.
Absolutely right. I think we need a better, this language and this terminology that you're using, we need to disseminate it much further to all sections of the people so that somewhere or the other there is a response.
Absolutely. So we have to continue the water conversation, and W4W has a pledge to continue the water conversation as long as we have support and encouragement of our speakers as well as many participants who have come on this platform. We are at least going until the end of October as of now. I can see. Do join us in our forthcoming sessions and keep supporting and encouraging us. Your joining itself is a big support for us. We would like that water conversation reaches to the last mile. And I would like to quote line from Anil Agarwal ji, making water everybody's business is the only way out, but the business in a I will say in the moral sense, not in the money sense, is extremely important. I'm sitting in Ahmedabad, so I'm always concerned when I use the word business. Thank you so much, all of you. I wish you again Independence Day greetings, and do stay tuned to www.w4w.in for more details. We will continue having these conversations as long as we keep receiving support from people like you and legend people like Manu Bhatnagar. You were in my list for a long time. So I would also like to thank Joy from Sopecom to bring you on board and giving us this opportunity to hear you out from such large scale issues to the smallest scale in our bathroom and kitchen. How can we bring a change in the water management? Thank you so much, Manu, and all of you. Please take care and have a very good evening and good weekend. Thank you.